Hey guys, Thomas the Jr. here, aka Mustached Tom, here to review the movie Star Wars The Last Jedi. So, I think it goes without saying that I should go over my thoughts and feelings of the previous two Star Wars movies within this trilogy, this newer trilogy, which seems to be setting up another set of movies most likely, but that is not shocking whatsoever. So, my thoughts in the past two movies have already been reviewed, and I've always kind of thought that the previous two movies weren't as good, uh, as the original, or, I think they were slightly better than the remake, the first set of, prequel stories, but, they were sort of like this in between because they were trying so much to be like the other movies or whatever. Anyways, it also had its issues with character development and all that other stuff. So anyways, getting into this movie, we start off, of course, with the typical narration. So we see these ships start to appear, bamfing into existence, and then we see our boy Poe, flying in one of them. Meanwhile, this sort of resistance is, trying to fend off the incoming attack by fighting back, and the ships that are there that are coming out are making all these sacrifices so that Poe can get in and destroy this what they call a dreadnought, which is this weapon-based ship, I think. So anyways, so we learn some new some new tech, like how the Supreme Leader, I believe that's what was his name, Smoke, I think that's his name, can force choke people through holograms, which, whatever, fine. Go through all stuff, why not? Anyways, that kind of tech just shows me that the villain of this movie isn't really that smart. Anyways, Finn wakes up, he's attached to something. He was still injured in the previous movie. He's asking where Rey is, and that never gets answered. But anyways, we see that Luke Skywalker that being, we saw in the last movie his last gesture was getting handed that lightsaber. He tosses it away. Kind of, that build up of the last movie was kind of just throw it away. So anyways, Rey grabs onto it afterwards. Then we cut back to Smoke, again, I think that's his name, talking to Kylo Ren about evil stuff and what they intend to do, and how, Kylo isn't the best at what he's doing. So Kylo goes on another one of his temper tantrums, just throwing a fit again, something we've seen in the previous film. So we cut back to Luke, who doesn't want to help Rey, the person we saw she was, trying to get him. So she follows him around and see what he's up to, and he's doing all this chore stuff, and there are all these distractions, what I like to call them, the cute critters, the distractions of the movie, to keep kids entertained, the little beady-eyed creatures. I don't know what they were officially called. I didn't write that down in my notes. But anyways, she decides to go in another direction, and she starts to see the past, or bits and pieces of it. So he asks why she is there. She keeps saying she was sent, and she was refraining from answering the question, but then she finally is okay, here, I need guidance, blah blah blah. So Poe returns and gets the forefront from Leia, the commander of the Resistance. And the bad guys, once they do their little bamf, jump, they are able to find them still. So the commander sees that they are at risk now that they can get found, So they're trying to figure out a way to get them out of this situation. So while that is happening, we see that very briefly, Finn picks up this little ring or something. I believe that the commander Leia had. I think it was like some. I assumed that was like a tracking device at first, but I don't think that's what that was meant to be. Anyways, R2-D2 finds Skywalker. I'll just call him Skywalker because it's Luke. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway. So he R2 that being plays the Leia's first message from I think that was from the first movie if I'm not mistaken, to get Skywalker back on track essentially. So Poe gets put in his place once more, and Finn talks to this little girl who this younger girl, I believe her name was Rose. She ends up becoming a pretty essential character within this movie at any rate. So Rose is this young girl who goes through her life story at some point in time, and at least she has some sort of character, which is something I've argued about in the past two movies. So at least they built her up enough to have some sort of semblance of a character, so I do appreciate that a little bit. So anyways, Rose shocks Finn, and then they, with a shock prong. And then once he wakes up, they figure out how they are being tracked, that being Rose and Finn. They let Poe in on this little plan. Meanwhile, they call that other creature that's supposed to be like the Yoda wannabe. That's what I called it in my notes, because I don't remember her name. And she tells them about this master codebreaker that they were supposed to get in order to get on the ship, to get the tracking device turned off. So, meanwhile, Rey wakes up, and we cut to Kylo, and we cut back and forth between them. It was a little bit redundant, and I think they could have done that in a lot less cutting between the two, for them to show that the two are now like connected via the Force, even though they're that far apart. Blah blah blah. So they're in each other's minds essentially. So Rey sees this black void, and Skywalker essentially is like, you're in the dark side of the Force, but he closed himself off from the Force, supposedly. Even though that, he goes back to it later on. Whatever. So Rey talks with Kylo some more, and she's trying to break him back into the good side. While that's happening, Finn and Rose go to this fancy casino where this so-called Codemaster would be found. Finn is easily impressed. Seems like he likes the gambler life. Take that as it may. So this is where Rose tells her story, as I mentioned earlier, and it's good, it's serviceable, I think. How she grew up and how this place essentially took the land from them, or took the, that area. So they get tased, and they get brought back to another area. But anyways, Rey begins her training with the lightsaber. So she's doing it on her own, and Luke tells her about his nephew, and how, I think the nephew was referring to Rey, not Rey, but Kylo. Because they show that later on in the movie, but yeah, anyway. So, yeah. After that happens, Finn and Rose essentially get, their escape on with this supposed Codemaster, in quotes. They get on these little doggo creatures, and they break out with these big ears, and they rampage through the casino with these giant doggo creatures. But eventually Finn and Rose do fall off, and the Codebreaker, in quotes, saves them. So Luke or Skywalker, contacts Leia via the Force or mind manipulation via however far apart they were, whatever. So that seems to be a common theme of you're able to just communicate with somebody even regardless of how far they are via the Force. So, anyways, Rey talks to Kylo some more about killing in the past and blah blah blah. It gets a little bit repetitive at this point. She follows them to this cavern, and they're still talking at this point, and she's in this weird place. And Skywalker has had enough of this, so they get into this fight where Rey is attacking Skywalker, essentially. And she's just tired of it, so she decides that she's gonna leave, thinking that Kylo is their last hope for some reason. Like, oh, he can change, yeah, let's go. So, after that happens, Ghost Yoda appears, the real Yoda, even though he's been dead for, like, I don't even know how long. Anyways, Ghost Yoda just burns the place where where Skywalker is like, yeah, this is a cool place where all this history is, and then Yoda's like, failure is the greatest teacher. I like that message. It was a good message in this movie, and it came in the middle part of the movie, where I think things start to pick up, because at the beginning was a little bit rough, especially with this one bit where Commander Leia's gets frozen on the spaceship and essentially saves herself by floating through space with the Force, but she's in space, but she's breathing enough to move her hands, and yeah, she lives, granted all that. So anyways, now that that's out of the way, Yoda says that the Rey has all the tools she needs, and so on and so forth. So, after that happens, Poe sees that they're getting a new commander because they assume, Leia's out of commission, so, as I just mentioned, so she's trying to get them to abandon the ship. And, he's like, nah, that's not good. Anyways, that hacker I mentioned gets in with the other two. And, the whole new commander thing doesn't last too long before she's doing her stuff. So anyways, Finn and Rose end up on the bad ship trying to do their plan with the code breaker. And Rey talks with Kylo about switching sides. I believe at this point they were actually face to face. And then they come to meet the guy called Smoke, the big in charge guy. So, anyways, Code Breaker uses this little metal thing he got from the new girl. Shoot, I just had her name too. Rose. There we go. From doing all that. So he gives her little pendant thing, and they are able to do their thing. But they are actually captured before they can leave. So Finn's team gets caught. Rey gets brought closer to Smoke, who uses she's trying to manipulate Rey and Kylo at the same time. Rey is seeing now that the Resistance is failing, and interestingly enough, when she goes to grab a lightsaber, she manages to grab a red lightsaber, which I don't think has happened in the series yet. The protagonist grabbing the red lightsaber, so I thought that was pretty interesting. Trying to say, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, this could be a thing, Anyways, enough teasing. Kylo sees the saber near him, and he ends up grabbing the blue lightsaber and hitting Smoke, because she was grabbed, and he's telling her, or telling him, sorry, to like, oh, kill her in front of me, and then he was like moving the other lightsaber that was near him, and then hit him with the blue one. So they go back to back, that being Kylo and Rey, who fight back to back together. They get their respected lightsabers though, and fight off some red dudes. So Kylo, after doing that, wants Rey to join him and burn the old world and build this new possible regime from the ashes. I guess that's what his plan was at the time. So they fight over this saber. Oh, one of them anyway. So anyways, the new commander blasts, and I suppose she had her phaser thingy put to a not lethal shot because she fought back. So anyways, Finn and Rose are like trying to get off of this burning ship, the bad ship that being, and the Resistance is like fighting back while this is going on now. And Finn, interestingly enough, gets to face off against his former master. So after that, and Finn wins, by the way, obviously, Rose, Finn, and R2-D2 get to escape. And there's this early part of the movie I forgot to mention where Poe like manages to survive like this explosion. It was incredible that a hero could survive such a blast that was directly hitting him, but you know, the protagonist has to live somehow. So anyways, the ships tried to attack the Resistance, so on and so forth, and the remaining Resistance is now trapped in this little like shed-like area that has a bunch of some weapons here and there. And this sort of hating sand trend, I think that's a joke in the movies, I guess, officially. Like, they had this one scene that where, like, the guy was just, like, saying something about sand or something. It was weird. If you heard noises, I apologize, by the way. So anyways, the Resistance makes its last stand, according to them. But Rey manages to join the battle. Meanwhile, Finn gets rescued by Rose, taking the hit. And for whatever, because, you know, Finn was, like, going in for, like, this mega blaster thingamabob. So Rose gets a little last kiss, I guess, because I guess she's dead at the end of the movie, I think. She kisses Finn, and then, yeah, that happens. I don't even know how old Rose was. She looked really young. I was like, is that legal? I don't know how old Rose is, so I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, anywho, Rey, as I mentioned, joins the battle, blah, blah, blah. So, yes, Skywalker returns to Leia, interestingly enough, and everyone thinks, like, oh, Skywalker's here to save us. So he goes off into the battlefield where the mechanisms, I forget what they're called, I'm sorry, the big evil guys all fire at him at once. Once they are done firing, interesting things ensue. Anyways, Rey's on the other side to help the Resistance as they're trying to find a way out. So, after they see that Skywalker survived all those blasts, Kylo decides that he's gonna face him himself. So, Finn and Rey finally unite on the other side of that little plateau, I guess I'll call it. I don't know what kind of area that was. Anyways, Kylo ends up finding out that he was fighting what essentially is an illusion, or a hologram, or an illusion, I think it was, of Skywalker, who was still on the island, so he made a version of himself to fight off Kylo, and that's how he survived all that nonsense. So, as you could probably imagine, Kylo was pretty peeved that he got nothing accomplished. But Kylo does manage to see Rey one last time before she heads off. And oddly, Poe finally introduces herself to Rey, which I thought they met earlier, but I guess not. Did that never happen in the previous movie and I just never caught on that they met? Anyways, we see these little kids, the one that were at the casino where the animals are freed. We see them telling the stories about what just happened, and they like run off to like wherever, and one of the kids like looks up into the night sky, seeing one of the rebellion ships supposedly like blasting off from one side to the other, and he holds up this little resistance ring, notifying that the resistance lives on. And that is Star Wars The Last Jedi recap. So, what did I think of it? I thought it had a bit of a struggling during the beginning, and I thought it really picked up during the middle and ending of the movie, though there was some other nonsense that had to happen in order for the movie to continue, like I mentioned before, Leia surviving how she did, or, Luke's new tricks to essentially do the things that he did, or, force choking through holograms. Whatever. New tech on both sides, so I guess it kinda evens out, I think. I don't know. Anyways, I thought the beginning struggled a little bit, but I thought, I think it was not that bad. I'd give it a 6 out of 10. I think that's serviceable. Good enough. Not quite a 7, as I said. I think some of the things are just a little bit too odd even for Star Wars to do, but whatever. So the journey will probably continue, considering the success of Star Wars. Where it will go from here beats me. But that's my review, and if you enjoyed it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. But until next time, bye!